Now we are going to connect our Raspberry Pi and Arduino. This is going to be the last step of all the hardwares which involves in our course. But I really find this thing more interesting because this is so much exciting to really work with hardware and to really see sensor. So moving on, let's see how we can connect these two things. Now we have our Raspberry Pi and we have our Arduino. They both are going to connect via serial communication. Now what happens in a serial communication, I will not go into details explaining the serial communication and the computer science involved beside it, but to be very simple, serial communication is a communication where data is sent sequentially. So if you have information like hi, I am good, then you will be sending hi, then I, then am, then good. But if it's a parallel communication, then if you are able to send 5 messages at the same time, then you will be simultaneously sending all the words at the time, hi, I am good, at the same time. So this is pretty much what serial communication is. The steps are very simple. Now this is quite interesting to know because we will be actually running Java program. Now Java program will be reading the serial data. Java is utilized everywhere and we are also going to take advantage of Java. Thank you, Sun Microsystem. So now what we are going to do is we are going to connect Arduino and our Raspberry Pi through this serial communication, and there's going to be a Java program which is running inside our Raspberry Pi, and this program will be actually communicating those data points which it reads from Arduino over the internet to our SAP HANA system. The steps involved here are first we will log into Raspberry Pi using our PuTTY, the SSH client, and then we are going to do an update of operating system. Then after that we are going to write the Java program. Then we are going to do a serial communication check. So we are going to see if our Arduino is able to send the serial data to Raspberry Pi and this Java program is able to read it. And then once the Java program is able to read it, then we are going to transfer those data across internet to our SAP HANA. Now we are not going to talk about SAP HANA in this section. In the later section, once we have set up the entire Raspberry Pi, then we will see how we configure the SAP HANA and UI5 in our HANA system. So for now, now we are going to set up our Raspberry Pi with our Arduino. Now one thing we missed previously is that we have configured our Arduino to actually write many values in the serial port, but we have to change that to this new code because we don't want many values to be written in the serial port. We just want to have the value of the sensor. So I just replace the serial.println in my Arduino sketch to serial value. So once I will upload this, so now in a few moments you can see here the code is written to my Arduino. So what it is going to do now is in the serial port, if I open it, then you can see the sensor values. Now as currently there is no light intensity in the room where I'm recording this video, so you can see all the zeros are there. So I'm only printing the sensor values now. Once we are done with the Arduino, then I'm going to disconnect the Arduino from my PC and I'm going to plug it into Raspberry Pi's USB port. So let's do that. So now I have changed the Arduino from my PC to my Raspberry Pi. So Arduino is no longer connected to my PC, and if I try to push this code, then it will give me probably error that COM18 port is not available. So you can see here it's taking time in update and it gives the error that the COM18 port is not found. So our task for the Arduino is done. Now the steps which we are going to perform the Raspberry Pi, you can see all the steps in my blog as well in UI5CN. This is SAP HANA IoT with Arduino and Raspberry Pi part 4. So in part 4 we have given all the steps. So I will be actually copying the command and the code from here so you can actually perform the same activity and have the same results. So the first step is to log into Raspberry Pi. Now before going inside Raspberry Pi, previously I mentioned that I will be connecting to my internet through my Wi-Fi and I will be connected to Raspberry Pi through Ethernet. I can see here, if I go inside the network, right click here and I go to open network settings. My intention is to show you that we are able to connect internet from your Raspberry Pi. Now when I go to change adapter setting, you can see I have already connected to my Raspberry Pi from my Ethernet, so it's connected. And in my wireless, if I go to properties, actually I'm connected to internet via my Wi-Fi. So in the sharing section, I have allowed other networks users to connect through this computer internet connection, and I have specified here that local area network 3, which is this one, will be allowed to access the internet. Now I will go inside the Raspberry Pi and verify if we are able to connect to internet or not. So this is the IP of my Raspberry Pi, and I have to also enable the X11. The IP of the Raspberry Pi is actually nothing but the file which we configured. This is the last section which we added to the file of the command line. The first part is actually your Raspberry Pi IP, this one, this right here. Now we're going to open the connection. It is going to ask us for the username, which is Pi, and the password, which is Raspberry, and it's allow us to enter inside. Now the first thing which we are going to do is test if internet is working or not. So I will do a ping, and you can see the ping to google.com is fine, and therefore I am able to actually download and install any of the software inside my Raspberry Pi. I would like to have 2 sessions, so this is something which helps me to configure different things. I will do the same operation, Pi and Raspberry. So the spelling of Raspberry is this one. So if you are wondering what is the password, so RASPBERRY is the password. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to have Xming server opened. So I will just type LX session. So it will open a GUI for me, and GUI is a bit slower, and command line, if you are new to Linux, then you should use GUI. If you are a bit experienced or you know about some commands, then the command line window is just heaven for any Linux developer. So I just clear it. So if we follow the blog, the things which we have to do is actually a bit complex, but I have mentioned all the steps, which is to make the life very easy. So the first step is you should see if you have Java installed. So what I will do, I will go inside and I will just type this. So actually I am copying anything from my window machine, and I'm pressing Ctrl C to copy, and then here I'm just right clicking it. Once I do a right click, then it's automatically copied in the console. So it's having Java, and you should actually do an upgrade. If you are actually entering the Raspberry Pi for the first time, then you should do an upgrade. So if I press enter, then it will actually upgrade all my existing Raspberry Pi libraries and whatnot. So there are many things which got updated when I press this command. So if you are entering Raspberry Pi for first time, so this is something you must actually type and test it. So I'm not going to do it because it will overwrite all the settings which I have configured for myself, because I'm doing many other things parallel to this use case, so I don't want to mess that thing up. Alright, so here's a simple 3 libraries which I have. I think these 2 are SO files. Like in Windows we have DDL files, in Linux we have SO files. So we have to download these 2. These are used for serial communication, and this last one is a jar file which will be also used for serial communication. So why exactly we are using these 3 library files? Because when you are reading your information from your Arduino to your Raspberry Pi, then you are reading the information in serial data mode, and the port which is used in Raspberry Pi is, if I show you the code, so this is actually the port name, because in Windows we have the COM18, in Raspberry Pi it is dev_ttyacm0. So this is something which is Linux specific. So if you are a Linux guy, then this is the port where your Arduino will be connected to your Raspberry Pi. So the first step we have covered. We have our Java version ready, and if it's not ready, then you will face problem later, and then you have to come back again and do an upgrade of the Java. Actually we need Java 1.6 because for the following step, the program which I mentioned here is compatible with Java 1.6. So even if you have Java 1.8, you have to actually write this command which will compile the version on Java 1.6 compatible mode. So if that's a bit confusing, then don't worry, because I have already given the command which you have to just type. So let's get back where we were. We were actually in the step 2. I'm now going to do a interesting thing. I will be opening internet in my Raspberry Pi and will download the files. So now if I go inside my application and I will open this internet using my Epiphany browser. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's something like this. So you can actually try other browser, but I really like this second one, because it has a very nice UI and it is also very fast. So now you are inside Raspberry Pi and you are doing some activity that's quite amusing, but that's the reality. So once we go inside here, I'm just opening my blog here, so I will get a direct link. So what I'm going to do is we are reading the blog in Raspberry Pi. Isn't that amazing? So let me open in a new tab. I'm going to open everything as a new tab because I have actually placed this in my Google Drive, so it will take some time to redirect to other link. So let me download all these files and then we will quickly copy in the respective locations. So now I will download the files. So we got all the 3 files required. We can actually go inside the folder, and we got the files. That means we will type this command. What it's doing is actually doing a very simple thing. It's copying the files to one specific location. Now the files are obviously these three which we downloaded, and sudo is actually giving you a root access, so you can actually do copy. Now the important thing to note here is that some of the files are copied because we are using Raspberry Pi, which is an ARM based processor, and there are sometimes, if you are working in Linux and you are new to it, you will find it very difficult to really understand that you have to also think about what kind of processor is running, and then you have to actually accordingly download the SO files and place it in the specific locations. In the Windows specifically, we are only seeing if it's 64-bit or 32-bit, and maybe sometime what kind of processor you consider that too, but not that much confusion exists in Windows. But in actual Linux, it's difficult if you're working with hardwares, because the compatibility is very different and there are so many types of hardwares. But it's a good news that Raspberry Pi is having a very nice community compared to other small microprocessor which is used for Internet of Things. So we have actually all the files in home pi download. Now we will be not using the GUI anymore because command prompt is very fast compared to GUI. So I will go to this download folder and I will see all the files are present. So I'm doing a dir, or you can type ls-a, whatever your wish is. Okay, so we see that all the files are downloaded, and we are going to just copy these three commands and just paste it there. That simple. Wow, everything was so fast that you cannot really imagine that things are happening in the command prompt. Okay, so we actually got the files inside the specific locations. So if you find any problem, then the cause may be that you might not be having JDK 8. Generally, when you do an sudo apt-get update, then it gives you JDK 8. It updates your Java to JDK 8. If not, then you have to actually do these two commands. This will install JDK 7 and GRE 7. Now most of the time, if you are downloading the new Raspbian, then it already comes with JDK 8. There are confusions in many of the blog posts, but this is the final simple steps which you can perform to really get the serial port working in your Raspberry Pi with Java. So that said, we are through to step 3. Now what we have to do, we have to actually create a Java program